Next news. Breaking news from the White House.
5 justices just told America that Election Day does not have to mean Election Day. And the knife twist came from a 5-4 lineup with Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts locking arms with Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Let that sink in. Ballots can land after the deadline, and the court blessed it. On the very same day, Donald Trump scored a massive 6-3 Article 2 win and smashed one of Washington's favorite bureaucratic idols at the FTC. That split screen tells you everything. The regime still protects drawn-out counting, and Trump still keeps breaking its machinery anyway. Now watch who celebrated. See, this matters because trust in election dies when the counting drags past the day voters were told actually counts. Justice Samuel Alito laid it out with brutal clarity. The ruling defies 2 centuries of historical practice and, quote, leaves open opportunities for voter fraud. He even cited the Jimmy Carter-James Baker Commission, calling absentee voting the largest source of potential voter fraud. That's not some fringe rant. That is in the dissent. And who popped champagne first? Of course, Gavin Newsom, right? The governor of California, home of the endless count circus, called it a win for voters. No, it's a win for machine politicians who love moving totals, weeks of tabulation, and scrutiny crushed under fake moral lectures. Meanwhile, Hakeem Jeffries barked that Trump wanted to rig the midterms. Translation? Democrats panic whenever anyone demands deadlines, voter ID, proof of citizenship, and ballots that arrive when the law says voting ends. Election Day either means something or it means nothing. When Amy Coney Barrett joined the liberals to stretch Election Day past Election Day, it reminded me just how badly Americans need something that actually works. You see, I've tried hundreds of supplements. Only C60 Evo hit like this. Brain fog gone, joint pain virtually eliminated. My wife's skin looks 10 years younger, and my energy feels 20 years younger. C60 Evo is a Nobel Prize-winning molecule, not just another antioxidant. It works at the cellular level where aging actually happens. The Paris study showed lab animals live 90% longer, the longest life extension in history. It's 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. It's worth more than gold per ounce, and the team's been making this since 1991 in a Houston lab. So get exclusive savings at c60evo.com/NNN. Use code NNN at checkout. Stop letting broken systems drain you. Now here's a detail that should infuriate every honest voter watching this. Donald Trump did not hide behind generic talking points after the ruling. He named names: Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, Bill Cassidy, Mitch McConnell. Trump said the Senate has passed on this too long and blasted the excuse-making line with one line. There is only one reason to oppose cheating, and that is where this goes next. Not theory, not academic chatter, pressure, public pressure. And now I'm going to show you every tweet, every meltdown from the people who need late ballots and weak Republicans to survive. Election Wizard posting U.S. Supreme Court rules in against the RNC in election mail case. The court holds that federal election day statutes do not preempt a Mississippi law that allows mail-in ballots to be counted as long as they're postmarked by and received within 5 days of Election Day. So that lays it straight. The court just ruled Election Day doesn't have to mean Election Day. Now Fox breaks down the 5-4 split and the 2 Republicans who crossed over. The Supreme Court rejects the Republican-led challenge to counting some mail ballots that arrive after Election Day. In a 5-4 decision, the court ruled that states can continue counting ballots received after Election Day if state law allows it, and the ballots meet requirements, including being postmarked on time.
Some breaking news. U.S. Supreme Court, a decision is now in on a challenge led by Republicans to late arriving ballots in elections. Shannon Bream has the ruling. She's got the news and the headline now from the U.S. Supreme Court. Shannon.
All right, guys, this is not a win for Republicans who were challenging this. Mississippi has a state law which allows ballots to be counted, mail-in ballots after Election Day. If they come in, they're postmarked and meet the state requirements, but it is a 5-4 loss for Republicans, and an interesting cobbling together of who wrote on this. Justice Barrett wrote the opinion. Justice Roberts joined her along with Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. So those 5 stuck together on this. The dissent comes from Justice Alito. Thomas Gorsuch and Kavanaugh join him. And essentially what the majority said is that these federal statutes setting Election Day don't prescribe, or they don't stand in conflict with states that want to say, okay, we have a procedure to count ballots after Election Day. Justice Alito, writing for the dissent, says today's decision is inconsistent with the terms of the Election Day statutes, contemporary election law principles, 2 centuries of historical practice, and the case law on the question presented. So if you're a state out there that counts ballots after Election Day based on your state law, that state law will stand. We wait on more opinions now, guys. More to come.
So Fox confirms it. Barrett and Roberts joined the 3 liberals, and Republicans lost this one by a single vote. Next, Nick Sortor takes the ruling straight to the real-world target, California, dragging ballot counts out for weeks. Yet another reason Save America Act must be passed now. This means states like California can continue taking weeks to count ballots after Election Day. It's beyond insane. Here's more.
All right, guys, this is not a win for Republicans who were challenging this. Mississippi has a state law which allows ballots to be counted, mail-in ballots after Election Day. If they come in, they're postmarked and meet the state requirements, but it is a 5-4 loss for Republicans, and an interesting cobbling together of who wrote on this. Justice Barrett wrote the opinion. Justice Roberts joined her along with Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. So those 5 stuck together on this. The dissent comes from Justice Alito. Thomas Gorsuch and Kavanaugh join him. And essentially what the majority said is that these federal...
So the outrage conservatives are zeroing in on. States can keep counting long after votes. Next, President Trump turns the anger to pressure on the Senate and names the rhino holdouts. Trump ramps up the pressure to pass the Save America Act. He calls out the rhino holdouts by name: Tillis, Murkowski, Collins, Cassidy, McConnell. There can be no more excuses. Posting this on Truth Social.
That in the Save America Act as one of our 5. That's voter ID. We want voter ID. We want proof of citizenship. We want no transgender mutilization of your children. We don't want transgender mutilation. That's number 3. We want no men in women's sports. That's number 4. And we don't want to have mail-in voting where the votes go. Where the hell do they come from? So we do that. It's 5 things. They're all 99%. They say, oh, that's an 80% issue, like voter ID. No, I think it's a 99. I think the Democrats have it at 87%. The leadership doesn't want it. Why don't you want voter ID? There's only one reason. Ready? Because you want to cheat. Okay? They blame it on all sorts of things. They came up, they said it's racist. They came up with things that you have to say their imagination is great. No. We're not going to let them cheat like they did in a certain election that we won't talk about. But that election was, and they cheat now. Look, we're not going to let it happen. So we're going to go get the Save America Act, not the Save Act. Nobody knew what the Save Act meant. The Save Act, what? Save what? Save America Act. And we're going to do everything we can. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe we're having a hard time. I think anybody that votes against it shouldn't be allowed to run for office. You want to know the truth. But we're working.
So President Trump posting on Truth Social, calling out the Republican holdouts. Murkowski, Collins, Tillis, Cassidy, McConnell must vote to save our country. There can be no more excuses. So Trump isn't mincing words. Pass the Save America Act, drop and stop pretending delayed ballot counting is normal. But while that election fight is raging, the court also dropped another 5-4 ruling involving Trump's authority over the Federal Reserve. A 5-4 vote. The Supreme Court refused to let President Trump remove Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook while litigation continues, holding the Federal Reserve's longstanding independence from presidential control is rooted in the nation's history and tradition. Yeah, tradition since 1913? Please. So in one case, the court ties Trump's hands at the Fed, even while the legal fight continues. Gavin Newsom cheers the mail ballot ruling and calls it a win for the vote by mail machine. This is a win for voters, he says. California, like many states, utilizes vote by mail to increase participation in our democracy. Today's ruling helps ensure mail-in ballots get counted and people's voices are heard through the democratic process. Sure. So he loves the decision because California Democrats benefit when counting stretches on and on. Now we go to Trump's full message demanding the Save America Act. This is what he posted. In light of the tremendous loss in SCOTUS today, and the fact that people's votes are allowed to be counted long after election is over, it's more important than ever to pass the Save America Act. Again, he says the United States Senate seems unable to do so in a time where there's a powerful communist movement taking place in our country, one more dangerous than World War I, World War II, Pearl Harbor, or September 11th. All Democrats and our 5 Republican Senate holdouts, Murkowski, Collins, Tillis, Cassidy, and McConnell, must vote to save our country. There can be no excuses. So after Newsom's victory lap, Trump's answer is blunt, and the fight isn't slowing down. Next, look ahead to another huge Supreme Court ruling on birthright citizenship. U.S. Supreme Court indicated tomorrow will be the final opinion announcement of this term, meaning we expect a landmark birthright citizenship at 10 a.m. It'll be massive when it comes to the future of our country. Here's President Trump remarking on that.
We have another one coming up, which is birthright citizenship, and we're the only country in the world that has it. You step into our country and you're all of a sudden a citizen. You come in a certain way. This was not meant for Chinese billionaires to have their children become citizens of our country. This was meant, or other rich people, poor people. This was meant for the babies of slaves. This was signed right after the Civil War. You look at the dates alone, immediately after. This was having to do with the babies of slaves. And people have used it. And if this is allowed to stand, it will be a disaster economically for our country. And you'll have 25% of the people coming into our country coming in through birthright citizenship. And we won't have any control. This decision by the Supreme Court is a very big one. They'll probably rule against me because they seem to like doing that. Frankly, I'm not happy with some of the decisions. Look at NIL. Look what they've done. Look what the courts have done to college sports. They're destroying college sports. They're destroying.
So, after a day of bad news and election integrity, all eyes turn to the next major battle. Supreme Court birthright citizenship opinion to be released tomorrow morning. That means the countdown is officially on for one of the biggest immigration rulings of the term. But before the decision lands, Hakeem Jeffries is already gloating over today's ballot ruling, taking a swipe at Trump. Donald Trump's effort to rig the midterm election was dealt a big blow by the Supreme Court, and he's having a meltdown. Well, Jeffries is celebrating because Democrats know late arriving ballots help keep the chaos going. Senator Eric Schmidt comes back with the conservative case, pointing straight to Alito's dissent and the fraud risk. His dissent lays it out plain as day. The opinion opens the door to more fraud and is not difficult to understand why. Outside of military ballots, ballots that show up after Election Day should not be counted and are highly suspect. Here is the Alito dissent. Today's decision leaves open opportunities for voter fraud that may further undermine America's faith in the integrity of this country's elections. So his warning is simple. Ballots showing up after Election Day are highly suspect, and Alito laying it out in black and white. Democrats see it very differently. J.B. Pritzker mocking Trump's position. Donald Trump spent years attacking voting by mail, even as he voted by mail himself. Then he asked the Supreme Court to throw out laws protecting your right to vote. The court said no. So Pritzker can spin all he wants, but the real split here is obvious. Democrats want looser rules. Conservatives want honest elections. Now we shift to a different court ruling, and this one is a clear win for Trump's presidential power. In a landmark decision that could transform the federal government, the Supreme Court voted 6-3 to allow President Trump to remove a Democrat member of the FTC purely for policy reasons, rolling back 90 years of legal precedent that prevented at-will removal of independent agency officials and significantly expanding presidential power. Well, he is the head of the executive branch, and he should have the power to hire and fire who he sees fit. Let's see how ABC News spun this.
Big win for President Trump and the power of the presidency in a landmark decision that was written by Chief Justice John Roberts. 6-3 decision here upholding the president's ability in this specific case to fire a Democratic member of the Federal Trade Commission simply because he didn't like her view on policies. Congress created that agency to be insulated from politics, only allowing people to be fired for cause. But what the Supreme Court said today is that violates the separation of powers under the Constitution. And in effect, that has now limited the ability of Congress to create independent, bipartisan agencies across our government. This will transform the federal government and eliminate a lot of those agencies that have both Republicans and Democrats on them. The agencies will still be there, of course, but now a president will be able to pack them with members he chooses because, as John Roberts said, they carry out executive functions.
Yep. Exactly right. So after the election setback, the rebound says the court says President Trump can remove FTC Commissioner, a direct hit on the unelected agency crowd. The White House celebrating what Trump's calling a major victory. Trump posting a true social big win moments ago. Supreme Court in the Slaughter case confirming presidential power in our country to remove executive branch officers and agency appointees or representatives under Article 2. The decision was long sought by the United States presidents, dating all the way back to the 1930s. It's an honor to be the sitting president who won this historic and unprecedented ruling, one of the most important ever given with respect to presidential power. Thank you for your attention to the matter. So the White House framing as a historic restoration. And now we have this ruling that overturns the Humphrey executor. In a 6-3 vote, Supreme Court ruled the president may fire FTC commissioners at will, overruling Humphrey's executor and holding that the FTC's for-cause removal protection violate the Constitution's separation of powers. So this wasn't a personnel fight. The court ripped up a 90-year precedent and clipped the wings of another so-called independent agency, Ron DeSantis, backing the ruling with straight constitutional argument. The executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States, Article 2, U.S. Constitution. So correct call to overrule Humphrey's executor. There are only 3 branches of government. There can be no concentrations of power outside of this constitutional structure. So DeSantis says the point is basic: 3 branches, not a swarm of unaccountable bureaucrats hiding in the swamp. But ABC's framing shows how the media want viewers to see this decision. They write, a landmark decision could transform the federal government, rolling back 90 years of precedent at will removal of independent agency officials, significantly expanding presidential power. They call it a major blow to independent agencies. Another court ruling turns privacy with police access to your Google location history. Another SCOTUS ruling that when police get your detailed cell phone location history from Google through a geofence warrant, it counts as a Fourth Amendment search. This means you have reasonable expectation of privacy in that data. So the justices were busy on more than elections and executive power. Mike Davis sums up the whole day in one sharp list. The summary. Election day doesn't mean election day. The president has Article 2 power over to fire FTC commissioners, but not Fed governors, because apparently we have a 4th branch of government. And then we have this from the president on the mail-in ballot ruling.
Well, because of the mail-in ballot ruling, which was a little bit surprising, gives people more time to vote illegally, let's say. But the SAVE Act is even more important, and that's the right. You have to be a citizen of our country. Okay, you have to show you're a citizen of our country, called citizenship. Voter ID by photo voter ID, and no mail-in ballots unless you're in the military, disabled, you're ill, or you're away, or even on a vacation. We're being very open about it. It's pretty easy. And we'll have honest elections. But the ruling, which a lot of people were waiting for, that was a ruling that was, I think it was very detrimental to honest elections. But it is what it is. Basically, they're keeping it a little bit the way it is now. They may have a little bit of a restriction on based on the wording.
About firing a parliamentarian.
And then you have the very important one, the Slaughter case, which we'll talk about if you ask that question. But the parliamentarian What were you asking about, Paul?
Yeah, have you talked with Thune about?
I have. No, I can't imagine why you'd keep a woman that was put there by Harry Reid and Barack Hussein Obama. I cannot understand it. The leader has the right to fire the person at will and put somebody else there. That could be, because we get so many negative rulings from her, the parliamentarian. She's been there for years, and she was put there by Harry Reid and Barack Hussein Obama. Harry Reid was a bad guy, and he was the leader, and he put her. And the speaker has the right to immediately fire her and put somebody else there. And it's not even believable that she's still there. She's obviously a good politician or something.
So the moral test of the Supreme Court day sits right there in one grotesque split screen. Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts joined Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson to protect ballots arriving after Election Day. Then the court turned around and gave President Donald Trump a 6-3 constitutional bulldozer in the FTC case, crushing Humphrey's executor and restoring Article 2 power where it belongs. So the regime message came through loud and ugly. Permanent Washington still shields the counting practices Democrats feed on, and it still fights to keep unelected power centers beyond a president's reach. Gavin Newsom celebrated the first half. Trump celebrated the second half. The contrast is the whole country right now. Chaos for voters, shackles for Trump unless Trump rips the shackles off. So here is the demand tonight, and it's not complicated. The Senate needs to pass the Save America Act now, not after another cable news lie, not after another California accounting marathon, now. Donald Trump already did what weak Republicans never do. He put the holdouts on the board in plain English. Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, Bill Cassidy, Mitch McConnell. If you oppose voter ID, proof of citizenship, and limits on mass mail ballots after a ruling like this, you are not defending democracy. You're defending a system that stretches counting, blurs deadlines, and shreds public faith one ballot drop at a time. At the same time, give Trump credit where the establishment hates giving it. His FTC win is huge, constitutional, and long overdue. He's still battering the deep state even while the court protects one of the left's favorite election loopholes. So drop your take below on which ruling matters most and send this to one person who still thinks deadlines are optional. And keep your eyes on the Senate. And keep your eyes on your phone, but that's only if you've texted the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. That's the phone number we set up to bypass the algorithm and send notifications direct to you when the notifications never arrive from YouTube. And celebrate America 250 with the Next News Network by going to the Next News merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.